Hi, my name is Lael Goodman, and I'm the Environmental Justice Program Manager at North Brooklyn Neighbors. North Brooklyn Neighbors is a grassroots nonprofit organization that serves the Greenpoint and Williamsburg community. We advance community-based solutions on issues of public space and the environment. I am here today to talk to you about the need for electric school buses. Right now, there's an opportunity to bring electric school buses to Brooklyn. Volkswagen, if you remember a few years ago, it came out that they had violated the Clean Air Act with the emissions of some of their cars. So right now there's a chunk of money that's waiting to be used to help clean the air. 52.4 million has been set aside to go towards reducing emissions from diesel buses. Some of that can be used for school buses. So I'm here today with Kevin Grant. He is the president of Evolve Electric, and they run the electric school bus campaign. He is an advocate for speeding up the transition to the use of fully electric or other zero emission propulsion for school buses, and he is based right here in Brooklyn. Thank you so much for joining us today, Kevin.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, so just want to ask you a few questions because you're such a knowledgeable person on electric school buses, and just love to hear how you first got interested in electric school buses.
Well, like everything that most people get into, it became personal for me. We grew up riding school buses, and school buses have always been around, but they're kind of in the background. For a big yellow vehicle, you would think people would pay attention to them, but they really disappear in the background because they operate at times that people really aren't paying attention, early mornings and during the middle of the day when they take kids home. But it all came, I've been in environmental law all my whole professional life, and I've always been into environmental issues, and I've always been a lover of vehicles, cars, buses, trucks, whatever. But I went to a play with my daughter, and we came out, and they were transitioning between the first play and the second play. And they had, maybe 5 to 10 schools leaving and 5 to 10 schools coming. And I walked out, and there was just a sea of diesel buses idling. I could see the smoke. I could smell the emissions. And I was like, wow. I mean, I've been following Tesla and all these other companies going electric. Some succeeded, some have failed, and some are still hanging on.
Waiting. Yeah.
But there's a lot of talk about electric cars, passenger cars, and it's all exciting and wonderful. And there are a lot of them, and that's where the focus has been. Transit buses had started to come into the know, but now they're just starting to snowball. A lot of cities are talking about going transit all electric. But I was looking at school buses, and I was like, why is no one talking about this? This is the perfect vehicle to start the transition. I mean, they're large, heavy vehicles that use diesel and need, robust engines, which electrics are. They're full torque from 0 RPM, so there's no problem with the power. And school buses travel short, known routes every day. So, you're not taking a school bus cross country. They travel, 20, 30 miles a day, which has been one of the main issues, range anxiety. We all hear about range anxiety. You don't have that with a school bus. You know where the bus is going to be. It parks usually the same place every night, so you'll have a place to charge them. And, they are a prototype for all of these, UPS trucks and delivery trucks and whatever. It's the same chassis, same manufacturers, So I'm like, why not prove the concept? You hear about the Tesla trailer and whatever, but it would be the same technology you put in the school bus, you would put into these tractor trailers and delivery trucks. And they have, so I was just like, why is no one talking about this? And I learned more about it, and it just became my issue, and my kids weren't riding the school bus. And then the next year, my son had to ride a school bus for 1 year. And I was like, dealing with the company, because we had to hire a private bus company. I was like, this is just awful.
Yeah.
the school bus industry. So it made me more impassioned about it. And I just decided that this would be something I'd take up.
Well, we're glad you have. So what do you see, and why is there a need for electric school buses in Brooklyn particularly?
Well, we'll start with the big picture. I mean,
Yeah.
when I started looking into it, I was shocked to find out that school buses are the largest form of public transportation. There's about 480,000 school buses in North America. And then, they dwarfs transit buses, taxi cabs, even Uber drivers, operating every day. So then New York is also the largest state for school buses. We have twice as many school buses as any other state except for Texas. And it takes about the bottom 18 states to equal New York. And New York City also has probably the largest density of school buses of any city in the nation. The
Hmm.
DOE alone contracts for about 10,000 school buses. And then there are the private school bus companies. There are other, people that use school buses, private schools that use school buses. So we really don't know the exact number of school buses in the city, but we think it's somewhere between 45 to 50 school buses per square mile in the city. So it's really high dense population of school buses.
Yeah.
And the industry really listens to New York because New York City requires a smaller school bus. We have about a 96-inch width requirement, and most other places don't have that. So the industry already makes a school bus just for New York. So we know that we can have an impact on the school bus manufacturers. If New York gets on board, they will respond. So if New York goes for electric school buses, then we can change the industry. California is doing a good job, but we need more. And we know New York is a market leader on this, or market driver, I should say,
Hmm.
because we had not been leading. There's no electric school buses in the city. But Brooklyn and Harlem and parts of the Bronx have suffered severely from diesel emissions. Asthma rates in New York is already bad. It's like 1 in 10 children have some form of asthma. And in some of these areas in Brooklyn and Harlem and Bronx, it's as low as 1 in 4, which is just appalling. And New York City is the only area I think in New York that is still a non-attainment area for ozone, which is one of the triggers, and that is created when the sunlight hits the nitrous oxides that are released. So it just makes sense. I'm in Brooklyn. Our borough president is very supportive of environmental issues. Our council members seem to be on board, even though it was suggested by a Queens council member, Drum, the bill. But Brooklyn is an area that seems responsive. Red Hook has done some good things on electrification with the cruise ships. So it just makes sense. I mean, we're highly impacted. We have a lot of bus depots also in Brooklyn, where I know most people know where IKEA is, the IKEA location. If you look out their window from the cafeteria, you'll see about 100 to 200 school buses parked right there. So,
Yeah.
we're a
Big
high
school
density.
bus. Yeah,
Yeah,
big school bus depots where school buses are coming in and out every day and impacting the community
yeah,
around where they're parked.
yeah. And they're in communities. I mean, they're not in docks and stuff like that. They pass by everybody's homes, and the schools are near homes. So it really impacts an individual at home, the overall community.
So if it's such a good idea, why aren't electric school buses kind of already more commonly in use?
Well, I mean, there are a few reasons. I mean, technology is fairly new. I mean, 11 years ago, Tesla didn't exist.
Yeah.
You know, they just started selling the Model S. The Model 3 has just come out 1 year ago. It's been highly successful, but most other car companies are not selling electric. Nissan has been pretty successful. BMW's been okay, but you don't go around seeing electric cars everywhere. And the light duty, heavy duty vehicles are just now transitioning to electric. We see they're talking about tractor trailers, and transit buses are doing pretty well. A lot of cities are now saying we're going full electric by 2040, 2035. Um, but school buses, as I said in the beginning, they're largely ignored. Nobody really pays attention to school buses, and they don't have the money for it. I mean, if you talk to any parent, what's wrong with schools? School buses are not going to be high on the list,
Yeah.
and the money has to be divided by all these programs, getting books for kids, getting the new technology, computers and stuff in classrooms, paying teacher salaries, school lunches is a big issue. and the money has to be divided between all of these things. School bus operations, and in New York, the schools don't run the school buses. They're all contracted. So you have to not only get the school board on board, but you also have to get the contractors on board. And in a lot of places, it's all funded through the school. It's part of school funding. So that's one of the main issues with transit buses. That's all they do. They do transit. They make money from transit, and they need to maintain their fleet. So, it's easier for them to say, we're going to spend on electric. We're going to try electric, because it's really, the benefits are long-term. Upfront costs are 2 to 3 times higher than buying a diesel equivalent, or even CNG or propane. But over the long run,
CNG is compressed natural gas.
Yeah, sorry, yes, the compressed natural gas. Propane has been pretty popular in some places. I don't think it's allowed in New York City. But those technologies are cheaper, easier, more familiar, and that's where the industry has been going. So to say you'll make your money in 10 years, it's a lot harder to sell when there's like, well, we have to spend money on infrastructure, or teacher salaries, or this and that. We can't spend, we can't buy 3 buses instead of 1.
Right.
But it's a hard sell. And, but I think parents are starting to wake up, and climate change has been more and more accepted. And also that's part of the problem is there are no direct effects. If your kid doesn't have the teacher, you're going to know tomorrow. School buses harming your kid probably 30, 40 years ago from now, I'm sorry. And it's developing asthma, developing chronic heart disease. It's not something immediate. You're not going to see the effects of the pollution, and it's mixed in with pollution from other things. So, it's not like a school shooting. School shooting, we know, okay, there were, a bad actor, guns, bad. It's easy to identify. School bus is kind of in the background and long-term issue. So.
Yeah, but it's in the background everywhere.
Yeah.
Every day, and so it's hard. Yeah, when you're kind of pressing against more immediate problems.
Yeah.
So it sounds like there are some challenges, but do you see signs that the electric school bus movement is gaining momentum?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the VW funds and the settlement has really kind of brought awareness of diesel pollution in general to people's minds. And one thing that I think gets lost is that, the emission standards that the VW are charged with breaking are more stringent than these diesel buses. I mean, they're allowed to pollute more legally. So, I mean, that is an issue that I don't think people really grasped, but, that is an issue. But since the money has come through, it will be a way that a lot of people have latched on to able to start to cut down on the initial costs. So if you can use that money to give it to school districts and tell them, well, this is money only for school buses, then it gives them an out, because they will say, okay, well, we have funds for the school buses that we don't have to take away from something else. A lot of people have galvanized behind that, and it's been working. Some states have allocated money just for electric. Some have said, cleaner school buses, because there are advocates out there that say, well, diesel is a lot cleaner today. It's a lot less emissions. They're cheaper. You'll get more bang for your buck. But I see that as short-sighted. We're going to have to invest in electric. We need to do it now, because we can't wait until we hit the cliff and then say, oh, let's get a bunch of electric buses. If we don't invest now, it's still going to cost a lot. We're not going to have the chargers. We're not going to have robust batteries. If we don't start investing now, we can't wait until crisis time. I mean, some people rightly believe that we're in crisis now.
Time now, yeah.
Yeah, but for a large bit of the population, it's not crisis time. We're not. California really feels the effects. They are having the forest fires. They've had the smog. They've been dealing with it, and that's why they're investing heavily in the technology.
Right, they're seeing kind of the immediate concerns, whereas some of what we're seeing is more long-term, as you said earlier.
Yeah, so California has been spending a lot of money. They're putting a lot of money on electric school buses, which has grown the industry. There are new companies that have been created with all electric from the start. The legacy companies have started to produce electric. Bluebird, which is one of the top three large school bus manufacturers, they've I think they did 5 or 6 electric buses came out this year for California, and then by next year we expect Thomas, who partnered with Proterra, who's one of the leaders in transit buses. So their bus should come out by the end of this year, maybe next year, and IC, which is the other large one, which is part of VW actually. They're a subsidiary of VW. They've announced an electric school bus. Haven't heard much more about it from them, but clearly, you know, if
It's all
there's
coming full circle.
exactly, I mean, I think they can see a way to capitalize on some of the money that they have to pay out. And Electrify America, I mean, the VW settlement pales in comparison to the full funds that they have to do through Electrify America campaign, which is doing a lot of things with chargers and other things like that. So the infrastructure is coming, companies are coming, and you know, legislation is coming. In New York City, we're working on an electric school bus bill to require DOE to contract for electric school buses. The bill was heard last year in December of 2018. It currently asks for full transition by 2040, but a lot of the comments requested transition by 2030.
So a transition from diesel to zero emission school buses by that.
Yeah. So I don't think they'll be all electric by 2030, but we will no longer allow people to add diesel or propane to the fleet. So as the buses retire, they'll have to be replaced by electric. So hopefully a good number of the fleet will be transitioned by then.
Great. Well, it sounds like there is a lot of momentum. So thank you so much, Tevin, for joining us today. And thank you everyone for watching. So as you know, the Department of Environmental Conservation has said that with the VW money, that electric school buses in particular will be implemented within and near environmental justice communities based on both economic feasibility and community demand. So North Brooklyn Neighbors has a petition out there to let the governor know that there is community demand here. So I'm going to put a link to that after this interview, and I'm also going to put a link to Tevin's electric school bus campaign, so you can go ahead and check it out more there. All right, thanks so much.